And should be live.
Okay.
Let's refresh. Okay. Okay, guys, does this work? Can you see us? Can you hear us? Are we live? Can't see the YouTube window. Might have to refresh.
Okay, I see you.
Yep, I see it too. It works for me as well.
All right, guys.
Okay, guys, let us know when you can see the window. And if you press play on the YouTube button, then we should be good to go.
All right, guys. While we get this thing going, why don't you just all tell us where you're from? We got a lot of people from a lot of different places, so just give us a heads up.
Yep, Colin just told me that his audience and willpower is a universal concept, so people from all over the place. So already saw in the beginning, got people from Trinidad, Tobago, so it should be a fairly mixed crowd. Should be cool to see where everyone's from. I'll put mine in from Germany.
All right. Do we just want to get started here? Nick, are you good to go?
Yep, I'm good to go. And people, if something's not working or you can't see the video or something dies or I freeze, just let us know, put it in the chat, and we'll try to fix the tech part.
All right. So welcome to the webinar, guys. I know you guys are logging in from all over the place and you want to enjoy your Saturday nights. So let's just get this thing going. Nick is a good friend of mine. Whoa.
Oh, now we got Slovenia, Emirates. All right, cool. So I don't want to keep you any longer, guys. So let's just get started. And again, if any problems come up, just let us know. So first of all, I want to thank Colin so much for inviting me and making this possible. I'm really excited about the stuff that I have to share, about the changes to help you guys focus and just stop multitasking and just kill that inner multitasker so you can really get focused on the work that really matters to you. And it's important that you get it done. And I want you guys to relax, enjoy, and don't worry, there will be a replay which will be sent out afterwards. So if you miss anything, you can, of course, catch everything later. All right, let's jump into the slides. And for that, I'm going to share my screen. And let me know if you can see my screen. Does that work? Can you see the slides? Does it work for you, Colin? Can you see the slides? Oh, Colin, you might have been muted there. I can see the slides in my window, I think. So that should work out. Okay, guys, so I'm gonna turn on the chat, so in case anything doesn't work, I'll hear the sound. Okay, good. You see it? Perfect. All right, destroying your inner multitasker for 2016. 10 changes you can make today to give your work the attention it deserves. Let's get into it. And before I start, I just want to give you a quick game plan. You might have noticed my Chicago Bulls hat. I like to do this basketball style. So we're going to put it in 4 quarters. The first quarter is going to be a little bit about multitasking versus single tasking and what the actual slam dunk strategy is for success here and getting focused. Then for the second part, we're going to have what multitasking on a mental level. So in basketball terms, so stop thinking so much and just pass the ball. And for the third part, we're going to look at your physical workspace, setting up the court, if you will. So what can you do to set up your physical workspace right in order for you to get really, really focused? And then for the last part, we're going to look at digital distractions. And I call that ignoring the scoreboard, because in a basketball game, if you're busy looking at the scoreboard all the time, you're not going to be busy actually scoring points. Now, a few housekeeping things. So as I just said, a replay will be available. So no worries if you miss anything, if I'm talking too fast, or if you don't catch the name of a resource, you can watch the replay and you can go over everything on your own time again. Secondly, there's no paid software involved here. Everything, the software that I show you guys, it's all free. You can just download it for free on the websites. Even if there are paid alternatives, the free stuff usually does. Similar, there's Mac and there's Windows software, and I'm going to show you both because I know not everyone's using a Mac like me. Number 4, I want you guys to have fun, so enjoy. And lastly, I want this stuff to be actionable, and I want to give you things that you can do right away and that you can use instantly. And what is actually my goal for today? Well, there's no better person to quote here than Michael Jordan, staying on the subject of basketball. And Jordan said, if you do the work, you get rewarded. There are no shortcuts in life. And I think Jordan is right. But then you still have to do the work. And that's kind of my job and my goal for today, to give you the tools to better do the work that will get you to the goals that you want to reach in your life. And I want to start with a little personal story about multitasking, a personal note I think that some of you might be able to relate to. And that's why I want to show this picture, which is a pretty common picture if you're driving along on a German road. This is the road that leads back to my parents' house. It's a small village, just 1,400 people, really, really tiny. And as I was driving along, this was the common view. But actually, I wasn't so much looking at the road. I was looking at this. And that's a reenactment of the picture, so no worries. I didn't take a picture of me fumbling around with my phone while I was actually doing it. But that's what I was doing. I was fumbling around with my iPod. I was setting up music, trying to pick the next song. And as I wasn't looking, I suddenly noticed like a little weird feeling. And that's because I was already here, right where the arrow is. And the weird feeling that I had was actually the tire of the car going over the rim of the road and onto the grass. And when it does that, you have that little vibration feedback from the steering wheel. You notice everything starts to tremble a little bit, starts to vibrate. And in this weird instinct of mine, I don't know what exactly happened, but I yanked the steering wheel to the left, just instinctively grabbed it, yanked it all the way to the left, and steered away from the ditch, but right into the oncoming traffic lane. So there was the other lane where oncoming traffic would have been, if there were any. I was right going in there, but I was lucky. There was no oncoming traffic in that moment, so I could actually catch the car and bring it back to my own lane, and then keep going that way. And that was a real wake up call for me, to that multitasking, like even the small little things that a lot of us do, can actually be really dangerous. And that's when I started making an effort to really get better at it. So now I want to give you another different example. That's also me. That's me sitting on the back porch of a house a while after I reached my parents' house again, and I was staying there. And that's how I used my break. I did like a little meditation, sitting there, close my eyes, listening to the sound of the trees, the wind. And that's how I was using my break. And we'll talk about the technique later, but I'm doing little 5-minute breaks when I work. And this is a really great example of how you can peacefully spend a break and not eat and do something, watch a show, and maybe be on the phone all at once. I just sat in silence. And the day I took that break, I also finished a really cool blog post, which is this one. And that's an example of what you can do when you're really focused, because I wrote that post in a single day. I think it's around 3,000 words, and it's on productivityist.com. It's a huge site. I think it has over 100,000 visitors every month. And that's what I did on that beautiful Sunday. I just sat down in the morning and went all the way from drafting the idea to writing the full post and pitching it to them. And luckily for me also, there's always a bit of luck in there involved. They accepted it and did really well. So that's a cool example of why single tasking is just so much better than multitasking. All right, but now I want to dig into the science of multitasking a bit. And the first example that I want to talk about is James Altucher. And you might know James. He writes a lot of stuff. He publishes a lot of stuff on his blog. He's written Choose Yourself, The Rich Employee, several books by now. And what James talks about in this case, it's a quote that's a little out of context, but I will explain. Let me read the quote first. It's, "The non-phone version of me can beat the phone version of me 95% of the time." And here's what James is talking about. James loves to play chess, and he plays a lot of chess also on his computer. But what James also does is he spends a lot of time on the phone. He's calling a lot of people, trying to get new guests for his podcasts, talking to friends. He has a lot of connections. So naturally, he spends a lot of time on the phone. And sometimes James does both. So sometimes he'll play chess while he's on the phone. And one day he found the statistics page of his chess program. And when he looked at a comparison of how he was playing chess, and he was always playing a quick chess against other people, when he looked at the statistics, he saw that the version of himself that was on the phone and playing chess was about 3 standard deviations worse than his focused version, so when he was just playing chess. And that's why he said, "The non-phone version of me can beat the phone version of me 95% of the time." If James played chess against himself, and one version of himself was focused and just playing chess and concentrated on the chess. And the other version of him would be on the phone talking. 95 out of 100 games, the focused James would win. And this is where it gets a bit sciencey, because what happens in James's brain when he is focused and he's playing chess, and let's assume he's playing physical chess and he wants to move a piece on the board. When he's focused, here's what happens. There is an anterior part of his brain, and this anterior part of the brain forms the goal or the intention. For example, to pick up the chess piece. And then he has the posterior part of his brain, where the prefrontal cortex is. And this part talks to the rest of the brain in order to actually, for his hand to reach out and pick up the piece. And once the piece from the chessboard is in his hand gets the feedback. The piece is in the hand, the contact is there. And that's when his anterior part knows, okay, I can now do the next action and proceed. And this is called an anterior to posterior chain. And I'm going to put an article into the resource section of this, so don't worry. You'll get a bunch of a document with the resources, so you can read it all through again and let it sink in, because this is a bit complicated. But basically, there's a whole reaction that goes from one part to the other, and that's happening in your brain. But that can only work when you're focused and when you're doing a single task. And to put it visually, what happens in your brain is this. It lights up roughly like this. So both brain halves are fully engaged. They're both working at full capacity. And yeah, so that's your brain in single tasking mode. Now, when James adds being on the phone to playing chess, then something else happens. And what now happens is that the right half of James's brain is busy, for example, is busy playing chess, and the left half of his brain is busy talking on the phone. Now, you have two brain halves, and they're both working on independent goals, and they're also chasing independent rewards, and they're not working together. So basically, your brain goes from lighting up like this, if you put it visually, to something that looks more like this. And I hope you guys can see this, because I have to sort of fake the animation with the slides. But this is what happens. His brain is constantly switching between doing one thing and the other. And every time he switches, only one half of his brain is engaged. So now, instead of one brain going at full power working on one task, you have two less powerful brain halves spending shorter periods of time on more tasks. So you can already see that this is probably not good for your performance. And there was a study done by the National Institute for Health and Medical Research in Paris, and they tested this very phenomenon. And what they did was they had people do different tasks, first starting with one task, then with two, and then with three. And the tasks they had to do were matching letters, so letters from the alphabet, and they had to match them either in sequence or in case or in color. And then they brought the tasks together. So first, the participants just had to match the letters in their sequence and had to get the order of the letters right for a word, for example. Then when the second task was added, they also had to match them in the case. So they had to look if they were uppercase or lowercase letters and get the sorting and the case right. And then they added in a third task, which was the color. And if you look at this graphic, and if you follow this along this explanation, you can already start asking some questions, because if you say, well, one task, so the brain is fully engaged, is working on one thing. Two tasks, you have two brain halves. Each half starts chasing its own goal. But what happens when you throw in a third task, because you don't have a third brain half, right? And that's why it gets super chaotic once you start doing 3 tasks or more. And that's what the researchers in the study noticed as well. When people were doing or had to work on 3 tasks, not only did they forget one of the tasks on a constant basis, they also made 3 times as many errors when compared to dealing with just 2 tasks. So there's a whole lot going on when you throw in an extra task. And they also found that people were up to 40% slower just due to the switching cost, which is basically the cost of going from having your right brain side activated to having your left brain side activated. Every time you do a switch, there's a mental cost involved, and these add up and compound, kind of like interest in a bank, which makes you very, very much slower in the long run. Now, for the next slide, I want to ask a question, which is, if multitasking is so hurtful to your performance, then why do we have this inclination to do it? I mean, we've all been there. We had 10 browser tabs open, browsing different things, clicking through, answering messages, speaking on the phone, the television's running in the background. So, and we just have this natural tendency to think we're good at multitasking even. And so the picture I wanna put in your mind a bit is the picture of a juggler. And if you think of a great juggler, you probably think of something that looks like this. It's a guy who has like 6, 7 balls. He juggles them. He doesn't drop a single one, and he can just continue doing that for a long amount of time. But today, I want to challenge your view of what a great juggler actually is, because I think a great juggler looks a lot different. At least now I think that. And to back up this view, or to dig into this juggler view that we might have of multitasking and the people that do multitasking, it was challenged by the people at Stanford who did a study, because they also assumed, well, we have this inclination to multitask, we try to juggle tasks, and so isn't there some upside to this? So they figured multitaskers have to be good at something, right? So there has to be some upside. And the researchers, there were 3 researchers who conducted the study, and they made different bets on what multitaskers would be good at eventually. And one researcher said, well, I'm estimating, I think that the people who do a lot of multitasking, they're probably really good at ignoring irrelevant information. So they can probably filter really well, because they do so much multitasking, they somehow have to learn how to filter the information and make sure that the important information reaches the brain and the rest doesn't. The second researcher said, well, I think these people are probably really good at working memory. So it means they can probably remember a few more things. For example, if you gave them a shopping list and the average person can remember 7 items, they might be able to remember 9. So that was a guess. And the third researcher made another guess, which was that they're really good at switching between the tasks and that they have lower switching costs because they do it so much. And the end of the study, the final result, it might surprise you or not, they turned out to be wrong. All 3 of them, nobody got it right. Multitaskers were worse at ignoring irrelevant information. They couldn't filter better. They didn't have a better working memory. And they weren't also any good at switching between different tasks. Now, a whole other study, who has not actually directly much to do with multitasking, found out something that they are good at. And multitaskers are good at drunk driving. That's what they're really, really good at. Let me explain. So it was a study at the University of Utah. And what the people at the University of Utah tested was, how does talking or texting while driving influence your driving skills? And what they found out was, if you are either texting or talking on the phone, and even if it's even if you're wearing headphones, it doesn't matter. What it does to your skill level is it basically results in you driving as if you are drunk. So they found out that if people talk or text on the phone, they could just as well be driving at the legal blood alcohol limit, which in the United States, at least, I think is 0.08%. And so that's what what multitaskers are really, really good at. So if you're multitasking in your car, you're talking on the phone, you might as well be drunk. And the really crazy part about this is I looked up some numbers, and at any given moment during daylight hours, around 8% of drivers are on a cell phone. So if you're driving out and the sun is out, every 12th car you see potentially has a drunk in it. And that's almost kind of scary, because so many people talk on their phones or text on their phones even while driving these days, that a lot of cars have a lot of crash potential. Now, the problem is we still try to juggle, but why do we have this inclination to think that we're actually good at multitasking? And that comes from another thing that happens in our brain, which is oops, sorry guys. Slides just taking some time to load. Let me try to open them up again. Nope, sorry guys, I have to kill the slides real quick. Preview is not responding. So let me open them up again. There we go. All right, here we are. So, sorry about that. Why do we multitask? Why do we think we can do it? Here's a picture that hopefully, when I explain it, will show you what's happening. And what multitasking does, it satisfies your emotional needs. And you have two kinds of needs: emotional needs and cognitive needs. And let me make an example. Let's say you have a class at school and you have to read a book for it. You have to read a chapter in a book. That's your homework. Now, when you're at home, you might think, oh, well, just reading the book, it's kind of boring. I know I have to do it for school. I have to learn something. But it's kind of boring. And yeah, it satisfies your cognitive needs if you read the book and if you just focus on reading the book. But it doesn't really satisfy your emotional needs, because your emotions, you want to have fun, you don't want to be bored. So maybe you think, why don't I just put on the TV in the background? Or why don't I listen to some music while I read the book? And what happens is, not only, of course, does it take away from your attention for actually reading the book, what also happens is that you're satisfying your emotional need because you listen to the music and that's fun, and or you watch TV and you enjoy that, but you're not satisfying your cognitive need at all. And that situation, when that happens in your brain, it's kind of similar to what happens to these guys in the boat. And what happened with this boat is it has two holes in it. It has a hole at the front end here and at the rear end here. And you can see the guys at the top, they're sitting there and they're feeling pretty good about themselves, and they say, well, good thing we stuffed the hole on our end already, because they see that the guys at the rear end are still busy trying to get the water out and trying to fix their hole. But that's the same situation as having your emotional needs met but not meeting your cognitive needs. Because if you have two holes in a boat and you're just stuffing one, the whole boat is still going to sink. And it doesn't help the boat if you sit there and you feel good about yourself because you accomplished one part, but the other part is still missing and the other hole is still there. So that's what the problem is when you satisfy your emotional needs by combining tasks that might be a bit more challenging for your brain with more fun activities like listening to music, watching TV, and things of the sort. So that's why I want to challenge your view of a juggler. Please reconsider it and make up your mind. Think about what a great juggler actually is. Maybe a great juggler looks like this. And there's actually a YouTube clip, which I'm going to put in the resources. This guy just juggles one ball. He has a crystal ball, and he juggles it. And it makes it look like the ball is flying. It looks like it just stays in the air. He's not touching it. The way he does it, it looks really magic and really amazing. And the thing that allows this artist to do that is the focus of the crowd on the single crystal ball, and his focus on the single crystal ball as well. So that's a whole other kind of juggler, and that's what a great juggler looks to me like now. He's focused, has a single task, a single goal, and yeah, that's what I'm gonna show you in a minute. Now I have one more really great example of single tasking, and I'm a big fan of this guy. Some of you might know him. His name is James Clear. And why is he a great example of single tasking? Well, James publicly commits to having a single anchor task every day. So that means every day of his week, he has to do one thing and one thing only. So of course he does more things, but that one thing he has to get done. Like, that's absolutely non-negotiable. And for Mondays and Thursdays, at least for the past 2.5 years, that's been writing an article. And if you watch interviews with him, you'll see him talk about it, and you'll see him say, well, it's true, I don't always write these in advance. I don't have this crazy post buffer where I have scheduled my posts out months in advance. He will often sit there Monday until 10 p.m. at night and desperately try to write something, or still write and try to get something out, but he always gets it done. And so that's a great example of single tasking, because doing this for 2 years or 2.5 years, every Monday and Thursday publishing an article, has gotten him 200,000 email subscribers and 2.4 million visitors to his blog in 2014. So that's quite the big single tasking success. And there's a strategy that James uses, which has a great name, which is what we'll create right now, and it's called the environment of inevitability. And that's a term which sounds kind of complicated and fancy in the beginning, but really what it is, it's an environment where it's actually inevitable for you to focus and to be focused on a single task. So you want to design your environment in a way that supports you focusing. And to start, I want to ask you a question, and you can put your answer in the chat, guys. So you can see this kid here, he's having some candy. There's a bowl with candy on the table, and he's just grabbing some chocolates. And if you had a kid and you wanted your kid to stop eating so much candy, I just want to ask you guys, what would you do? So how would you get your kid to stop eating so much candy? You can put your answers in the chat, and there might be a slight delay, so we'll have to wait a little bit for the answers. But put your answers in the chat, and then we'll see how you guys do and what you guys think, and then I'll give you the answer.
So Nick, we've had some like really big problems with the internet connection so far today.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of people have had to skip out and only go to the recording. Yeah, it's really far behind.
Oh, is the delay like really big?
Yes. Yeah, it's not good.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So we might have some problems with getting the answer to this question.
Oh, okay. I get that. I get that. So should I just move on?
Yeah, I would say so, unless you just want to answer the question yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'll give the answer and just move on, and so people can just watch the recording and get it right away. All right. Okay, so the answer to the question is, what you would do is you would just remove access to the candy, okay? So you wouldn't put the candy in front of your kid and say, hey, don't have candy. You would probably just take away the candy, lock it up, or throw it out of the house altogether and say, well, no candy there, so your kid can't have it, and that's done. And that's what an environment of inevitability looks like. It's actually, the environment is designed in a way for you to not have much of a choice, and to just work and be focused. And with that, I want to jump into the live section. But before, again, sorry guys for the tech problems. You probably see this later, but you can still tweet it out. You can tag us at Colin Robertson, at Niklas Goeke, hashtag no more multitasking. And but with that, we'll move into the live part. And for the live part, the first thing that I want to show you is this. You'll also get a link to this. It's called the Multitasking Game. And it's a game to actually show you that you cannot multitask. And the way it works is it gives you a whole bunch of tasks, one after another. So you're given a single task in the beginning. I just want to demonstrate it until the second task comes. You have to balance a ball with your arrow keys. Now you have to avoid some spikes with your other arrow keys. And it just goes on like this, and it keeps adding in tasks, up to 4 tasks. And this is a really good way to show you really quickly that multitasking cannot go on for too long and won't go well. So with that, I'm just going to cut that here. With that, I want to show you what the strategy is to actually work in a focused manner. And for me, my task for that is writing. So I put writing on the calendar. That's the very first thing. Every day I schedule an hour. I give myself a little buffer. So if you have a really important task and something that you want to make a habit and keep working on continuously, put it on your calendar, schedule it every single day. And then I highly recommend you use something called the Pomodoro Technique. You've probably heard of it. It's a technique where you spend your time in 25-minute blocks with 5-minute breaks. So you get a timer, and this timer will also be in the resources. It's called Tomatoes, where you just press start and work away 25 minutes, pure focus on the task at hand, and no distractions, no phones, no nothing, just 25 minutes of work, for example, on a blog post. And after the 25 minutes, you'll get a 5-minute break. And that's a really good strategy, but let's get back to the environment, because that's actually what you have to design in order to keep using it and keep using the Pomodoro technique. And the first strategy that I want to tell you about is called the collection bucket. And the collection bucket is an idea that comes from the book Getting Things Done by David Allen. It's been a really popular book. And the way it works is kind of like a mental, sort of like a brain dump, where you can put in your thoughts, kind of like what Dumbledore is doing here from the Harry Potter movie. He extracts this thought from his head and puts it into this basin so he can store it. And that's how a collection bucket works as well. It's a list of things that you do at the end of the week. So for example, if you have a task that you remember while you're writing, let's say you have to buy milk. You would just enter remember the milk or buy milk into your collection bucket. And why is this helpful? Because the moment you remember that you have to buy milk and you're writing, this feeling will probably sit in your head and nag you for the rest of the 25-minute block. So in your head, you'll go, oh, buy milk, because first you want to remember it for later, and don't instantly forget it. And then your brain keeps telling you to do it because it opens the loop, and the loop, your brain demands that you close the loop. And the collection bucket is how you can actually get rid of these intrusive thoughts and things that you remember that you still have to do. So you put them there. It can be a list on a Trello board, which is a free project management software that I use, or it can be a note in your phone, or it can be pen and paper. Doesn't matter what it is, but you just title it collection bucket, you enter your things and you collect them. And once at the end of the week, you take an hour or two to get these little tasks done. And that's been one of the biggest things for me in the past year that has really, really helped me not get lost in the little things and little details while I was working on the stuff that was actually important. Now, the second strategy that I want to teach you is called pared down decisions. And what are pared down decisions? It's a decision that you make once and then you never have to make it again. So the way this works is, a good example is the President Obama. What he does is he only wears gray and blue suits. So you might have heard about this. I actually went to Google and looked at some pictures, and I went into each picture, zoomed in, checked it, and it's right. He always has gray or blue suits. And why did he make this decision? Well, it's something he made once as a decision, and now he never has to worry about it again. And I bet that somebody in the morning probably even picks the color for him, but at least he doesn't have to worry about it. So examples of pared down decisions that you can make are breakfast, a morning routine, brushing your teeth first thing in the morning, always drinking a glass of water when you wake up, never drinking alcohol would be another example, always run on Wednesdays. So these are the kinds of things that you can decide well in advance, and you never have to make them again. And now, because you follow Colin's stuff, you of course know that has a big positive impact on your willpower. The more decisions you have, the more willpower you have left to make important decisions. And the way I usually think of it is like a soda machine. In the morning, you wake up, and or in your office when you go to work, the soda machine is stacked, it's completely full. But as soon as you start making decisions, or in that case, popping out sodas, they come out one at a time. And by noon, sometimes the soda machine is empty. And you can sort of think like you have this soda machine in your brain. You have a certain amount of good decisions or decision capacity, but once it's used up, it's used up. And if you have to spend your mornings deciding what you're going to have for breakfast, what you're going to wear, what kind of shirt, what kind of shoes, and whether you'll brush your teeth first or do it after breakfast, or whether you're going to run that day, then you're going to arrive at work, or noon will hit, and you'll have no decisions and no willpower left. And your willpower will already be tired for the day. So pare down some decisions. Make just one decision today. For example, what are you going to have for breakfast tomorrow? If you like oatmeal, have oatmeal. If you like cereal, have cereal. If you like fruit, have fruit. But decide in advance, and then try to stick with those decisions over a longer time. That will really help you save some precious energy and stay focused on the important stuff for longer. Now, change number 3. For me, it works well. It depends on your personal kind of style, but for me, it works well. It's music. Because music can really get you into the zone. Especially if you're doing something, a task that's creative, for example, like drawing. And what you can do is you can listen to a song, but only one song and on repeat. And it's best if it's an instrumental song as well, for example, classical music. So you really want to make it one song and then on repeat, and let it play for about an hour. And if you have a song you like, you can just Google it with the 1 hour added to it. And usually it'll show you the results on Google, because people loop songs all the time and put them up so you can listen to that. Or you can just put them in your player, iTunes or Spotify, and put them on repeat. So that's also something that works. But what's an even cooler tool that I just found out about recently is called Noisely, Noisli. And there's even a Chrome extension for this. And what this does is it lets you create your own custom sound mix. For example, you can have rain or thunder or forest sounds, and you can combine these and save them. You can even create a sort of a coffee shop vibe if you like, or just some white noise, and just have that sort of background sound to get you in the zone and focused on your creative tasks. Again, a good example is drawing. Now, again, I said we're also going to talk about the physical workspace. And that's the first part that I want to talk about is your desk. Your desk should be as clean as possible. So some desks are really, really cluttered. I know Einstein's desk was really, really cluttered. But Einstein maybe was an exception. I still have to meet someone who's very organized and focused, who has a really cluttered desk. So this is the desk in my apartment, and I can also show you the desk at my parents' house at home. It's really clean. I have maybe a light on there, maybe a pen to take notes, for example, for the collection bucket, and then that's it. And I put my laptop on it, and that's really it. So because if there's distracting things or objects there, magazines, or even your phone, you'll naturally grab it just because it's there. Another change that I highly recommend is trying to get a study or a work zone. And that can be your desk, but it also can just be your couch. That's something I do very regularly. I just sit on my couch, have a coffee mug there or some tea, put my laptop on my lap and start working. And you can also see no obvious distractions there. And what has been shown is that it helps to switch your study zone. So you might as well establish two, for example, a coffee shop and your desk at home, or your couch and your desk. And switching these study zones will help you remember things better because you keep changing your environment. And again, as you notice, there are no obvious distractions here. And that's another change that I recommend you look into, just removing the obvious distractions that are already there. For example, like your TV remote in your living room, magazines on the kitchen table, or Xbox controller, things like that that are just in plain sight and really easy to reach and grab, but are obvious distractions that do not help you do focused work. And now for the biggest section, which is the digital section, there's a whole bunch of cool stuff that you can do here. And the first thing that I want to show you, it's an app. It's called Self-Control for Mac. And what it does is it blocks certain distractions. You have a blacklist that you can edit. You can put in different sites, Twitter, YouTube.com. And the cool thing about it is once you edit this blacklist, you press start and you set it to a certain amount of minutes, for example, 4 hours. It's kind of overdue, or just like 30 minutes. You press start, you can turn this off. So the websites are definitely blocked, and you can turn it off. Even if you reboot your computer, it won't do any good. It will still be there. So that's definitely blocked for that amount of time. And when you can't access Twitter, or when you just go to Twitter and it says, oh, you can't access it, then you think, okay, might as well, actually do work and get back to what I was doing before. Now, the alternative for Windows is called Cold Turkey. Again, the resources are all in the resource document, so don't worry about those. But there's a Windows alternative, and this is what Cold Turkey does. Next up is Alfred. Alfred is a really cool tool that you just saw in action when I tried to find self-control. It's this little search bar, which is kind of similar to Spotlight on a Mac. And what it does is it lets you start your applications, find files, and go to them directly. And why does that help you focus? Well, you don't have to open your browser, open your Explorer or Finder, and go through it and search your documents and go through your folder structure, where it's easy to get distracted and see, oh, well, I still have this movie here. I still have that picture there. Let me look at this file again. No, you just go straight to where you want to go. For example, if I want to open Chrome, I can just type in Chrome and it gets it. Or if I want to go to Firefox, or I can even search Google directly. Or I can start FaceTime. You can also open files. So for example, if I know I have a letter, it's called Brief in German, I can just go through it here, can preview it, open it, and it opens straight the document that I need, and doesn't allow any way on my path to actually get distracted. And the Windows alternative for this, again, it's called Launchy. It does the exact same thing on Windows. But Alfred has definitely been a really big thing for me, because just avoiding that whole going into your folder structure, searching for things, that has really been helpful. Now, the next change that I want to show you is your browsing sessions. And when you start your browser, it shouldn't actually look like this, what it looks like, because I prepared all these, but it should be a single tab, because when you start working in the morning, usually you open tabs as you go, and they add up really quickly. So instead, try to just open the new tab page, or at least a specific page if you want to, for example, do something, the same thing, but just have it set to one tab, not more. For me, it's Blinkist. I read in the morning, but so just keep it to single tab. You'll see within a few minutes, you'll probably have several tabs open already. So don't start out with something that looks like this, where you just run into this web of distraction, where you'll keep checking articles that you opened yesterday and things of that nature. So just make it easy on yourself, set it to a single tab, and be done with it. Now, one of the last ones I have is Inbox Pause. This is a really cool plugin. It's for Gmail. And once you install it, this is what it looks like. You can see your inbox is currently paused. Messages will next arrive at 11 a.m. To unpause now, visit your inbox and click the blue unpause button. Get a pause button here. And what it does is it moves your email to your inbox only at set times. So for me, that's 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. So in between, I won't get email. Inbox pause hides the email, and it only shows it to you at specific times. So 11 a.m. moves all the email in, and then it's paused for another few hours. And this is great because having email notifications and pop-ups and things coming up in your screen or on your phone with sounds and noises is really distracting. And usually you have to either get some information or answer the email right away anyways. So you might as well do it in batches and do it in one go. And another thing that I have is hide your cell phone. So as I said, with the obvious distractions, I know the cell phone is a biggie. Everybody wants to keep it at arm's reach. And it's really important that we have it with us. But what I found is when you just put it out of sight, it also goes out of mind. For example, we have this beanbag chair here that I sometimes slide it under, or when I'm working at the library, I just put it behind my laptop screen. And that's also something that works really well, because if I don't see the phone, I'm not going to pick it up. Now I have very few more. One of them for the phone, which is this. This is my phone's home screen. It's very, very empty, as you can see. There's nothing there. And what this does is, don't worry, I still have apps. They're just one screen over. And this is something cool you can consider if you find yourself often going to your phone, maybe going to your phone for no reason, but then also opening the wrong app, or going to your phone for a reason and then opening the wrong app. Because if I want to really check my messages, I can unlock my phone and I will see this, and it will give me a pause, and I will have a little pause to think, okay, actually, what did I want to do? And once I remember, oh, actually, I wanted to check my messages, I'll go over here and click on messages. Because when you open your phone and it instantly looks like this, it's very easy to get distracted by little notifications like the one up here or the two up there, and say, oh, let me check this because it's just there. Or you maybe want to check your sleep data, sleep cycle if you're using a sleep app like me. And making your home screen completely empty is just a cool way to give yourself some time to reflect about what you actually want to do when you unlock your phone. And then make a conscious decision about what's next and what app you're actually going to open. And similar to the phone, you can, of course, also do this on your desktop screen. You notice I have some icons sitting around right here. And a clean desktop really looks a lot nicer and is also a lot less tempting to get lost in. So what you can do, I know technically you would have to file all these away and decide for every single file, but the lazy man's way is to just make a new folder, mark everything, and just throw it in there. I'm going to do it right now. See here. And one is already better than 10, 20, 50, or even 100. It's just like your physical desktop. If it's cluttered, your mind feels cluttered as well. And that already looks a lot neater and makes it much more important for me to actually decide what do I want to do once I have opened this, and where do I want to go next, and where do I want to focus on. And I think that's all of the changes that I have for you guys. Again, don't worry if something was too fast or if you didn't catch something. You'll get the replay. I know there's been some tech issues as well. I'm really sorry about that. So you can go through it again at your own pace, and you'll get a resource document with all the resources. So let me just stop the screen share here. Come back again. And yeah, so you can go through all these again and have, with the resource document, there's all the links there, the studies, the articles. So take some time again to go through the material and just see some of these changes. Most of them are really fast to implement. They take a few minutes or even less. And if you take them all and add them and throw them together, they really amount to a lot, and a lot quicker than you think, kind of like compounding interest. And yeah, I hope this stuff really helps you. It's been really powerful for me, especially in comparison. And yeah, I hope you learned something. And that's it from me so far, guys. And if you have any questions, of course, put them in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them.
Great, thanks, Nick. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Those of you who are still around, I know we had a lot of technical issues. Included with Nick's follow-up resources, I'll also give you some articles that I write about multitasking versus focus, as well as some of these things that Nick covered today. It'll all be included with the webinar. Oop, lost light here. Sorry about that. And feel free to give me an email at colin@willpowered.co if you guys have any questions about this stuff.
Cool. And I also just want to say thanks a lot, Colin, for inviting me to share this stuff. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to just be here and share and try to help.
Sure. No problem, Nick. Thank you very much for coming. It's too bad that we had so many technical issues. I don't think that we're going to be able to do much of a Q&A through us talking here. We're probably going to have to do it through the actual chat itself. If you want to start asking people questions on there.
Okay.
If you're watching the recording from now on, you could probably turn it off at this point, because we're just going to be asking questions on the chat room.
Okay. So I'll just put this in the chat.
Unless you want to say the questions out loud, and then you can answer them as well.
Oh yeah, sure. Do you think that would help people?
Sure.
Yep. Okay, guys. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. I know the delay seems to be huge today. I'm really sorry. Michelle Gladys already says, super clean desk. What if process maps and procedures print version must be readily available for revisions? Well, thanks for this tip. Has created a mini library in my desk. Ah, I see. Okay, so you move them from on the desk to inside the desk. Yes, I think that's a good idea. That's actually similar to the whole cell phone thing, where you just, if you put it out of sight, it'll be much tougher to actually get distracted by it.
Okay, so earlier in the session, Salwa asked, what is wrong exactly with trying to multitask? You just want to answer that really quickly?
Okay. Sure. So if you remember the section of the whole, let me pull up the chat again so I can see the question. If you remember the section about the whole emotional needs versus cognitive needs and the whole performance loss, you will suffer that performance loss whether you like it or not. So even if it might feel good and you might want to try because you think you're doing well, I bet that if you switched, or if someone tried from switched from trying to multitask to trying to single task, they would notice a huge bump in performance. So I think the trying part is natural, but the performance really takes a hit, and whether you like it or not. So that's the first part, why I just wouldn't recommend it. And then the second part is that in the long run, it probably makes you feel really bad. Because in the beginning, you feel busy. Your brain gets a lot of little quick dopamine hits because you answer so many messages, for example. But in the long run, it also really wears you out because you're constantly trying to satisfy either multiple needs, or your brain is busy switching all the time, and that really wears you out a lot faster than single tasking. So that's another big factor why you shouldn't go for it.
Okay, and then one other question that was asked is, are we capable to change now? I mean, most of us are adults. And I answered the question in the chat. I don't know if that's going to be available via the recording. But anyway, your brain is capable of changing at any point in your life. It's through a process called Neuro Plasticity. And if you go to Willpowered on YouTube, you'll be able to see a video that I created called Why Mental Training Works. And it'll explain exactly how your brain is able to change, even at old ages, when you're as long as you direct it in the right way. So at any point, you're able to switch from wanting to multitask to wanting to being able to focus. And the more you do that, the more connections your brain is able to make, and the better you become at doing it.
Yes, I remember Colin also previously shared a great video. I think it was in one of your courses that was also about neural pathways and reforming them and rewiring your own brain.
Yes, that's actually the video that I'm referring to. It's available for free on my YouTube channel. Just look up Willpowered.
Yep, it even has the graphics of like the visuals inside your brain, what it looks like, and like different pathways. It's a really great video. I highly recommend it.
Sure.
That really makes it click.
And I would love to know the answer to, or this answer to your next question. What is the best book that you suggest people read on focus?
Oops, sorry, just got messed up. The best book I suggest people read on focus. Well, of course, since I'm reading a lot of book summaries recently, and a big one that I can recommend is The Willpower Instinct by Kelly McGonigal.
One of my favorites, yeah.
Yep. So that's definitely a big one. And another one, which I just recently read, is The Paradox of Choice by Barry Schwartz, which might not seem directly related because it's about consumer decisions mostly and how we make purchase decisions. But I found it had a huge impact on my focus because just by limiting myself voluntarily, I want to say, just by making some rules and limiting myself in some ways, for example, with the desk or with the phone or with the way some things are set up. And that was actually very freeing and helped me develop a lot of focus. And so
Sure.
Very counterintuitive to read that book for this purpose, but it helped me a lot. So Paradox of Choice by Barry Schwartz, and of course The Willpower Instinct by Kelly McGonigal.
Right. And then the next question is, finding it hard to focus in the afternoons between 2 and 6 p.m. Is there anything you can do to charge up during those sleepy hours?
Charge up during those sleepy hours.
Yeah. So if in the afternoon you start getting, drained of the ability to focus or drained of willpower, how do you get a little boost to help you in the afternoon?
Yes. So I think that's very similar to what you would probably do to boost your willpower. So two things I could recommend are snacks and nuts specifically. And just today, my roommate, he got pecan nuts. I don't know if they're so widely available because probably walnuts are what everybody has and can get. But pecan nuts, I find, work really well. They look kind of like walnuts. They're like smaller and a little more brown, a little darker color. But I found these help really well. Also, sometimes scrambled eggs. So definitely foods, and then of course low glycemic foods that also help with your willpower. So nothing too sugary, which would just give you a sugar crash. But definitely those kinds of low glycemic foods like nuts and, for example, eggs. And of course, if you can, that's always take a nap. So it depends on your situation. But it's a very common practice, for example, in countries like Vietnam, Thailand, for people to actually have naps during office hours. So after lunch break, for example, people will go to their desk and they have pillows and they just take a quick 20-minute, 30-minute power nap. And that's also a very quick way to recharge your focused energy.
Great, and yeah, along the lines of what Nick said, some other very valuable things you can do is meditation on a regular basis, and also you can find an article that I wrote by just looking up meditation when you go to willpowered.co. Also, along the lines of what he was talking about with food, you can also find the best foods for your willpower. Just look up best foods for willpower at willpowered.co as well. And you'll find articles on both those things that will give you the ability to have more focus and energy in the afternoon.
Gustavo suggests a short walk. Yes, fresh air also helps.
Do you want to answer the one by Manuel, who says, it wonders if single tasking is really possible? You're at work, the phone rings, there are people all around you, and they ask you to do several things at once. How do you kind of deal with all of those expectations on yourself?
All right. Yeah, I get that. It heavily depends on what kind of job and what kind of industry you're in. I 100% agree. So for some people, it's tougher to create this environment than for others. But there are always ways to make it happen, or to at least make it better. And I also have a little bonus video for some tips for work that I'm going to share with you as well. But one of those things, for example, is if you're interrupted at work often, for example, because coworkers come to your cubicle or your desk and they ask you things, you have to train your environment. And in that case, it means to an extent training your coworkers. For example, you can direct them to a certain medium, say phone or email. So, for example, if people keep interrupting you with these small mundane requests, just say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm really, really busy right now, but can you send me an email about this? And if you have your email, for example, set up with inbox pause and you're batch processing your email at a certain time, then redirecting all requests from the outside to email, and you have to constantly do that. It's a process. It takes a while. You have to tell people, oh, sorry, can you send me an email? And by the third time you tell the same person, can you send me an email? Most people will just switch to sending you emails right away. So you can train your environment and even other people to a certain extent to follow your rules. And when you have them there, you can then, if you have a good email system, for example, use that to help. And also, another thing that I found is at work, put on headphones, even if it's just like in-ear ones like these. But put on headphones because it makes you look like you're either on the phone or maybe listening to something, and people want to interrupt you less so that you get less interruptions.
Sure, that's great. Do you want to answer Manuel in the chat there? And then I'll move on to the next question by Jamie here.
Yep.
So Jamie understands that it's clear to her that she should do single tasking, but if she has different tasks, should you finish one before handling the next, or does it really matter if you do single tasking every time? And to answer that question, I'll use a quote from Mark Cuban, who says that first you need to win the battles that you're in before moving on to the next one. And the reason why you want to do that is because sometimes you have so many things that are out there. The average person has actually 30 tasks that they're trying to do at any given time. And if you have 30 tasks out there in the open, you're going to start stressing out over finishing all of them. And the only way that you can finish them is by doing them one at a time. The most boring part, or the reason why a lot of those 30 tasks don't get finished, is because we hit the middle of the journey, as I call it, and things just start getting boring. You're super excited about a task at first, you're excited about what results you're going to get from it, but once you hit the middle of the journey, things start getting hard. You see how far you are from reaching the end of finishing that task, and it just starts getting boring. And in those times is when it's most important for you to start focusing and just ensure that you get through that hump and you see that thing through to the finish. Do we have any other questions, Dick?
We should be different tasks. Finish one before handling the next. No, you answered that one.
Yep. I think we're all up to date.
Yep, I think so.
Given that, what would you say is the most important thing when it comes to focus? What is the best strategy that you use?
The best strategy that I use is, for me, it's definitely the email thing. So I have my email is moved to my inbox for the first time during the day at 11 a.m. And before that, I can't access my email. And I don't even go in there and answer old ones, for example. I don't even touch my inbox until then, because I usually do my writing in the morning. So I get up, I have a morning routine. I do the Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. It's a popular one. And so it takes me around half an hour. And then I start, the end of the routine is reading and writing. So I do that, read a book summary, write a short mini blog post that I publish somewhere, and then move on to have breakfast. And after breakfast, I then get another really focused 2 to 3 hours before even the first email hits my inbox. Because what I did was what a lot of people do before morning. I wake up, go to my phone, check email first thing in the morning, and that I found really distracted my brain, and I just went into all directions thinking about possible responses. And so that's really been a lot better since I stopped checking my email before 11 a.m. And that's of course something you can have to, yeah, it doesn't work for everybody, I know that, but if you can afford it, try it.
Sure. Okay, so do you want to answer Silva's follow-up question, who thinks that it might be kind of rude to kind of say that? Go ahead.
I get it. Yeah. If you mean about if you redirect people at work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think it very much depends on how you phrase it. But what I would definitely do is, when you redirect people, you should only do it once. So don't, if someone comes to you with a request and you say, send me an email about this, and they send you an email, and 4 hours later you still haven't gotten back to them, or like 2 days later, that's not okay, I think. I think you should give them a definite time when you're going to get back to them. So if they send you an email, or if they interrupt you, you can say, I'm sorry, I'm really busy. But then give them a definite time when you're going to get back to them. So if you send me an email about this, I will get back to you by 5 p.m. today. And set clear expectations so the other person won't be disappointed.
Sure. Do you want to answer that in the chat?
Yep.
And then I'm going to go over my favorite technique for focus really quick.
Yes.
So my favorite technique for focus is something I call the nothing alternative. And what that means is, the reason why a lot of us procrastinate is because the thing that we really need to get done is hard or it is boring. And because it's hard or boring, we want to do something else that is a little bit easier for us. And one of the greatest examples of this is with writers. Writers, they, like Nick said, it's one of the toughest things is to get your writing done on a regular basis, but that's what you need to do. You need to find that creative spark within you. And one of the writers named Raymond Chandler came up with this idea that he could get the most amount of writing done if he only had two choices, and that was to do his writing or to do nothing at all. He could sit and stare out the window, he could stand on his head, he could do anything he wanted, but he had to do nothing, or he had to do his actual writing that he had to get done. And by doing that, now the brain isn't looking for something else to fill the boredom, because writing is less boring than doing nothing. And because that is now the choice, that helped him get all of his creative energy and focus towards that one thing. And that I've found that is by far the best strategy for me in doing anything with focus.
That is a pretty good one.
Do we have any more questions in the chat?
I think Sawa has another follow-up question. You're right. So you mean it's not pure no, it's just promise to do the work in specific time. Yes, that is one example, but you create an expectation for the other person when you will get back to them, and you make it very clear that you are going to get back to them and you are going to help them, but just at a later point in time, and you make it clear when. So you set some expectations and you live up to them, and that'll actually make them happy.
Great. We're at about 75 minutes here for the runtime. Do we want to wrap it up?
Yep.
Sure. So thanks again, guys, for attending. The rest of you who are here, you're going to get the follow-up email with the recording and all the resources and all the other articles and stuff like that all have to do with focus. And I hope you're excited to keep on going down this journey. I invited Nick here so that he could share his perspective on it. He has a lot more tools and stuff like that than I even know existed. I'm excited to try them myself. But this is a very, very important topic, because it is one of the major reasons why, especially today, people are less productive than they could be, because there's just such a want and need to do everything at once. And it's just, the science behind it is just so clear that is not the best way to get things done. So going to send you all that follow-up information. Thank you again, Nick, for being with us today. Sorry we had the technical issues, but these things happen sometimes, I suppose. Next time we'll do better.
Thanks for having me.
Great. All right, guys. See you all later, and thank you for coming to the webinar.
See you guys.